Um, and that is how, you made an argument. So give me that argument in short, for our listeners today. Give me that argument that by saying La ilaha illallah, there is no God but Allah, Islam is inherently rejecting false gods. It is inherently non-authoritarian, and it's liberating.
So the argument would be, and I'll give you the argument in two different ways, I guess. I'll give you a practical argument. For over 30 years, Mubarak was God. He was a pharaoh crowned, right? Nobody imagined. Now, the assumption was this God had absolute power. Nobody has absolute power because, again, where there's power, there's agency, there's resistance. Okay. So Egyptians had bought into this false god and the system. So when they were holding placards and signs saying down with the regicide, they thought that the regicide exists outside them. Meanwhile, the god, the mini gods, the mini Obamas, the mini Trump exist inside each of us. And we've learned to, vis-a-vis, again, being weaned on the state, on capitalism, to worship our own selves. This is why Al-Jihad al-Akbar, the greater jihad, is fighting one's own inner demons, one's own fascisms, that one is constantly culpable in. I may be talking too much. I may be talking over a woman. I may be hearing her and not just listening to what she's saying. I may be embellishing in my over machismo instead of embracing femininity and emotions as a feminine practice. So believing in a certain God or a single God and saying La ilaha illallah to a majority Muslim population, but even within the Christian population, because they also refer to Allah and they believe in a single God, means being able to understand that one's loyalty, again, is not to Mubarak, is not to the regime in power, is not to pledge allegiance to, as Egyptians did during Tahrir, Muslims and Christians are one hand. We are all Egyptians. That within itself is a defiance of Tawheed. Because what is this Egyptian nationhood construct that's supposed to, number one, it's very ethno-nationalist because it excludes Nubians, Sudanese, and a lot of other Siwa people and so on, indigenous people, right? So it's a very racial project, but this is what buying into the modern nation state does. That breaks Tawheed. That Tawheed operates vis-a-vis, again, the one thing that we share is not race, it's not gender, it's not any of that. It's not tribe, it's not bloodlines. We share spiritual, ethical, political, social justice commitments. That's it. You could be Hindu, you could be Jew, you could be whatever it is underneath the sun. The moniker, the caliber by which we are all operating in relationship to this omnipotent, transcendent Allah that we engage in Tawheed with is ultimately God, is ultimately the loyalty to a certain sovereign, right? So, and the manifestation of that sovereignty on a certain earth. So, and by the way, I said Hindu, but perhaps, the more appropriate would have been, say, to use Sikhs as an example, right? Because of their holistic belief in a single creator. But my point being that that is a manifestation of Tawheed. The moment that when you took the oath of citizenship, let me take me as an example, in Canada, in the US, I pledge to obey, to protect all laws, all rules, to defend and protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and so on and so forth. That means I pledge my allegiance to a sovereign order, a crusading order that is founded upon capitalism, is founded upon dispossession, is founded about all the things that are antithetical to not only Tawheed, but antithetical to the principles of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I just swore my allegiance to what exactly? To a kafir order. It's as simple as that. Why? Because I believe that somehow this order, and this shows that I don't actually understand this order, at least with regards to a diasporic population, this order represents principles that Allah stands for, but they don't. When I actually study this order, when I understand this order, they don't. And so what do I run after as a diasporic Muslim? I run after, in God we trust, on the $1 bill every single day. I run after making ends meet. I run after having a house, having a car. I run after worshiping my children because that's the upward mobility civilizational paradigm, assimilationist fantasy that this order provides. That you can be anything, you can become anything. without any sense of responsibility, again, in Islamic principles that are hollowed out. So this is what believing in Tawheed is. Tawheed, to me, in an exercise of sovereignty in and for diasporic Muslims, means that I am ultimately then responsible towards, again, my kin, my relatives, indigenous people, Black people that I share ethical, political, spiritual commitments in. It means being in unison to and with the land that is a subject. That's what Tawheed in this instant means. It means disrupting settler colonialism. It means building an alternative to settler colonialism. That's what it means. It is not worshiping that liberal order, because again, everything that liberal order is founded upon principally goes against Tawheed, let alone what Tawheed stands for from and in ethical, political, and social justice commitments. So I hope that makes sense.
So you've touched